So about the new Roma, very, very interesting. It's a new V8 2 Plus. Now, what's interesting is they say 2 Plus, but they don't say 2 Plus 2. I think you'd have just as much luck getting someone in the back seat of a 911. Don't get me wrong. If you had to get somebody across town, maybe sitting a little sideways, it's workable, but you wouldn't want to do any grand touring from the back seat. So Ferrari's idea is that many Ferraris from the past have made both automotive and Italian design history, thanks to their elegance, sophistication, and timeless lines. The Roma's design took its inspiration from the concept of sporty elegance celebrated in the most legendary grand touring Ferrari of the 60s. The most striking example of those are the wildly successful 250 GTs, including not just the Lusso, but also the four-seaters that were favorites of Enzo himself, Enzo Ferrari, who we're talking about, such as the 250 GT 2 Plus 2. These cars were front-engine, simple, elegant, 2 Plus 2, fastback coupe design. The Roma shares many of these characteristics and embodies an extremely modern design language. Pure, refined, not loud, perfect proportions, cleverly conceal Ferrari's power and sportiness. And the multi-award-winning V8 engine punches out over 600 horsepower and really underscores the perfect marriage of performance, sportiness, and elegance created by this new Berlinetta. Berlinetta means coupe. So let's talk about the look of this car. So it's very understated. The front of the car looks like it was sculpted from a single block of metal, created an overhanging shark nose effect on the car. It is absolutely stunning. The wide front hood, or bonnet, as they say in Europe, and fenders, they say wings in Europe, they flow into one another, and it's a very powerful contributor to the design. But it's really effortlessly harmonious, if I were to put it in my own words. Engine cooling is done by just some small perforated surfaces only where strictly necessary, as opposed to kind of really accenting the vents. I mean, if we think about the mid-rear engine cars where you have the scoop coming in behind the door or in the door, et cetera, which was kind of a Ferrari trademark. This is going the other way. So the V8 turbo, making 611 horsepower at 7,500 RPM, has an unbelievable instantaneous throttle response, which I find interesting considering everything's drive-by-wire now. I mean, you're not pulling the cable to the 6 carbs, right? So amazing throttle action. And this is based on, or thanks to, what's called variable boost management. So this is the turbo, not like the old days, not needing to wait for 4,000 or 5,000 RPMs to flip the switch. The V8 with the dual clutch gearbox, of course, that's the only gearbox available now. I love the concept of a dual clutch gearbox. I mean, and obviously a human can't shift as fast as the Ferrari transmission, so it makes sense in racing and it makes sense statistically. I personally enjoy the visceral experience of driving a manual transmission, but the beautiful thing about a dual clutch gearbox is when one gear is revving, it's spooling up the next gear to hand it over. So we're already good on the power curve and the gear below it for a downshift. Of course, we don't have to talk about the exhaust in a Ferrari. I mean, is there a better soundtrack in the world? Best power to weight ratio in the segment. I got to be honest, I don't know what the other cars in the segment are, but power to weight ratio, unbelievable. The Roma is also using a third generation electronically controlled mechanical diff in the back, which of course offers traction control, but splits the torque between the rear wheels. But what's interesting is it impacts the torque between the inside and outside of the wheel. Very, very interesting. So on medium or low grip surfaces, really helps in coming out of corners. The rear spoiler that comes up guarantees almost 200 pounds more rear downforce at nearly 200 miles an hour. I mean, and that's important. Let's face it, when you're approaching 200, than a Portofino without hurting the efficiency. So remember, we don't want to hurt the efficiency, the fuel economy, and we definitely don't want to hurt the beauty or elegance at lower speed. So in the Roma's cabin, Ferrari's designers came up with the idea to create two separate spaces. They call it cells, one for each driver and passenger. The idea is an evolution of the dual cockpit concept introduced and patented on the GTC4 Lusso. So the idea is trying to evoke a sense of continuity with the top-of-the-range model in the Ferrari Gran Turismo family, which also has its roots deep in the marque's history, thanks to its own strong connection with cars of the likes of the 365 GTC4 from the 70s. Let's talk about the infotainment system in the Ferrari. Isn't that interesting? I remember the days when people went for radio delete in Ferrari because for purity and for let's just listen to the exhaust and let's not get distracted. But now we have infotainment. That 30 to 40 buyer has a different demand now. When they're pulling up to that nightclub in one of the world's largest metropolises, enjoying their single lifestyle, they're going to want some infotainment. So the technology adopted for the Roma was derived from the SF90 Stradale. It highlights the future nature of this new Gran Turismo. So this is clear this is a GT car. When we talk about Gran Turismo, we're talking about something that we can travel distance in style. So the completely digital instrument cluster is integrated with the volumes around it and protected by an elegant anti-glare binnacle, just like on a boat, which extends out naturally from the dash. So it looks organic, it looks proper. And to create a sense of symmetry, the passenger also has an optional, they call it in quotes, emotional display that allows them to share the driver information. Very interesting. So let's talk about onboard comfort or interior comfort. There's certain distinctive characteristics that make sure that the Roma is ideal for everyday driving and long-term journeys. Now remember, a lot of Ferraris are driven 500 or 1,000 miles a year. They're an occasion car. They're a cars and coffee car. They're a track day car. They're a theater car. They're pulling up to a nice party or charity event or that nightclub we were talking about earlier car, but not so much for daily driving. That just wasn't the idea, not that you couldn't enjoy that. Now we have a car that had daily driving and grand touring in mind. So they really didn't miss everything. The idea is a Ferrari that, thanks to its typical Italian style and driving pleasure, it's like a futuristic take on what finesse life in the 50s, 60s Rome, if you think about portrayed by Fellini in La Dolce Vita, that's the idea. That's a movie that inspired other great directors of the time who also helped make the phrase Dolce Vita synonymous with life of enjoy luxury without concerns, not just Italy, of course, but across the world. So if you could imagine being that actor with the girl with the hair scarf and big sunglasses and scarf going out the window or with the top down, but of course this is a coupe. So the Ferrari Roma is La Nuova Dolce Vita. So here's the cars in the Roma competitive class. This is what Ferrari thinks they're up against and that they want to compare against. Porsche 911 Turbo, Aston Martin DB11 V8 Coupe, Mercedes-Benz AMG GT-C, and a Bentley Continental GT V8. These would be the other cars on the shopping list if you're looking at a Roma. I have to admit that's an attractive shopping list. And I don't want to say Roma's at the top of my list, but like very often in my life, the last one I saw, the last one I sat in is the one that I want most. When people say, Jeff, what's your favorite? I say, the one I just drove. So I'll say for now, since the Roma's the last one that I spent some time with, that would be my favorite. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this car as much as I did. Thank you very, very much to Ferrari Tampa Bay for giving me a chance to make this piece on the car and to show off their car. They were very hospitable, a great crew up there. This is Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars. See you next time.